Hello and welcome to our Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. European leaders are gathering in the Belgian countryside to begin charting a new economic direction for the continent. Facing mounting pressure from China and uncertainty surrounding a volatile Trump administration, there is broad agreement that Europe must strengthen its position on the global stage. But now the key question is can the bloc's leaders actually agree on the path forward? For more on that, let's bring in our correspondent, Alex Cadier. He's in the Flemish town of Alden Biesen, where the leaders are gathering. Alex, so good to see you. Do tell us, will this be Europe's big economic moment? What can you tell us?
Well, Diana, it's a yes, maybe no. Really, it depends. There is a lot to chew over. There's a lot to discuss for these European leaders. Let's start, as these things so often do, with the French President Emmanuel Macron setting the scene earlier today.
The pressure on us is growing, with clear, strong competition against us, at times unfair competition, with very strong pressure from China, with tariffs imposed on us by the Americans and threats of coercive measures. All that demands a response.
So now the question becomes exactly what can Europe do? And of course, 27 different member states will have 27 different opinions. The number one priority for so many of these countries where they all agree is that we need to lower energy costs. If you speak to industries, pan-industry, be it heavy industry, be it lighter industry, be it tech, they all say energy costs in Europe are much more expensive than in the US, than in China. They have to go down. On that, there may be some cooperation between European countries, but clearly a lot of work still needs to be done. There's also the question of how to cut red tape in the European Union. We heard from Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, saying that some companies in Europe say that they spend more on bureaucracy or as much on bureaucracy as they do on research and development. And there's the final question of how much to sacrifice the EU's existing climate or environmental rules. I'll give you one example called the ETS, the energy exchange market. So it's effectively a market where companies can have a certain amount of greenhouse gases. If they go over that, they have to buy allowance from other companies or sell their own allowances if they go under that. Effectively, a very expensive, very complicated system to make sure that emissions go down in the European Union. Poland, Belgium, others, they want to see that reformed. Others are suggesting getting rid of it altogether. On that, there is no agreement. If that all sounds rather complicated, Diana, it is because it is complicated. Reforming the European economy, 27 different countries coming to an agreement. They agree that they have to reform. They have to be more productive. They have to be more dynamic. And Europe's economy has to grow more because the US is volatile. China is bordering on hostile. Europe has to stand up. We will see in the next few hours, in the next few weeks, whether or not it can. Diana.
Alex, it may sound complicated, but you have done a great job at explaining it to us with such detail. Thank you so much, Alex Cadier. Poland has become the latest U.S. ally to reject President Donald Trump's proposed board of peace, with Prime Minister Donald Tusk declaring that Warsaw is going to remain a loyal partner, but not a vassal to any country.
Poland has become the latest U.S. ally to say no to President Donald Trump's board of peace.
Poland is not and will not be a vassal in this alliance as long as I am Prime Minister of the Polish government. It will be a loyal, faithful, reliable ally, but it will not be a vassal in its relations with any country in the world.
This morning's statement came after yesterday's National Security Council meeting in Warsaw.
In the current circumstances, Poland will not join the work of the Board of Peace, but we will analyze it. Our relations with the United States have been and will remain our priority.
Trump unveiled the Board of Peace in January.
We call it the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy.
Originally tied to overseeing Gaza's reconstruction after the ceasefire, the board's charter broadens its mission to global conflict zones and gives Trump sweeping authority as chairman. Members are asked to contribute $1 billion for lifetime membership.
We have serious doubts about a number of elements in the charter of the Board of Peace related to its scope, its governance and its compatibility with the United Nations Charter.
So far, within the European Union, only Hungary and Bulgaria have signed on. They are joined by Alexander Lukashenko, president of Belarus, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and leaders of Turkey, Kazakhstan, and Saudi Arabia, among others. Russian President Vladimir Putin also received an invitation and suggested using frozen Russian assets to cover the membership fee. So far, the offer remains pending.
NATO defense ministers are gathering at the alliance's headquarters in Brussels. They're set to discuss the implementation of the Hague commitment, including modernization of the armed forces and increasing defense spending. Ongoing support for Ukraine through multilateral frameworks will also dominate the agenda, as the Ukraine contact group is to meet later this afternoon. Our defense correspondent Zuzana Jurek is in Brussels and has this next report.
The ongoing support for Ukraine is expected to dominate the agenda during the Ministers of Defense meeting of the NATO alliance taking place in Brussels today. Now, we've already heard the initial remarks from the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, as well as individual defense ministers from the NATO member states countries, including Pål Jonson, the Swedish defense minister, underlining that the individual allies are poised to pledge additional financial and military support, primarily for the Pearl Initiative, that is the the European-led NATO initiative to acquire large weapons systems for Ukraine as it continues to endure Russia's war of aggression.
You just heard the good news from John Healey, the UK Defence Secretary, Secretary of Defence, announcing £500 million in air defence, both bilateral and Pearl, for Ukraine. And this is really important because Ukraine, as you know, they are really staunch, they are fighting back, but they are also still hit with missiles, etc., on their civilian infrastructure and innocent civilians. So this is important. But what you see overall is a picture of Canada and Europe stepping up, spending billions more on defense, ramping up the defense industrial base, keeping Ukraine strong. So I think this is very important. We will take stock today.
Sweden is also going to be announcing that we're going to do our third Pearl package to the Ukraine. We think that Pearl is important in order to procure defense material from the Americans that we can send to the Ukrainian quickly, especially when it comes to air defense and interceptors for some of the air defense systems that we actually don't produce in Europe.
Now, apart from helping to support Ukraine through multilateral initiatives, including the Coalition of the Willings, the allies are also expected to discuss how to bolster their defense and deterrence in the key strategic priority areas. That includes the High North, as has been underlined by the unveiling of the Arctic Century yesterday. Now, we know that this is an initiative which is going to be European-led, although it does come at a time where the U.S. has been pushing forward with their strategic interest in Greenland, amongst others. So we know that this is going to be discussed, and how to collectively come to an understanding on the key strategic priorities of the NATO alliance is also going to be on top of the agenda. From Brussels for TV World, Zuzana Jurek.
Russia continues to push users towards its national apps by blocking major international online platforms. Services such as WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook are currently unavailable to users inside Russia. Users say the latest measures have effectively made the platforms invisible, making it nearly impossible to access the services. Additionally, access has been cut to websites and services including international media outlets such as BBC, Deutsche Welle, and Radio Free Europe, according to Russian media reports. Russian internet providers are required to use the national domain name system, overseen by Russian Federal Executive Agency Roskomnadzor, under the country's so-called sovereign internet law. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is pushing back against reports that Kyiv plans to announce the date for new elections on February 24th, saying the claims caught him by surprise and making clear that no vote would take place before a ceasefire is in effect.
The president of Ukraine has said that presidential elections in the country can only take place after the hostilities cease. This was his response to media reports claiming that he planned to soon announce new elections and a referendum on a peace deal with Russia.
The issue of elections is raised by Ukraine's partners. Ukraine itself has never raised it, but we are certainly ready for elections. I have said that it is very simple to achieve this. Establish a ceasefire, and there will be elections. In other words, it's a matter of security.
Member of the Ukrainian parliament, Yulia Sirko, has told TVP World that elections are inconceivable from the perspective of today's Ukraine.
It's just simply impossible because there is air raids all the time. People are in the bomb shelters. I don't understand how we can do elections in this election campaign and election in these conditions.
At the same time, American officials, including President Trump, have said on multiple occasions that despite the war, Ukraine has to hold elections.
When do they have an election? Are they going to have an election? Or are they going to just keep it going like this?
And for Ukraine, the United States is an ally they cannot ignore.
The real situation is President Zelenskyy has to play along with any demand that is coming from the US. Nobody wants to antagonize Trump. If the Americans are saying June, then Zelenskyy is saying, of course, we will do it. We will have elections. And now you go and pressure Russia.
Ukrainian authorities have repeatedly said their country's constitution does not allow for elections under martial law. Originally, President Zelenskyy's term was scheduled to end in May 2025.
A scandal is brewing at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Ukrainian skeleton racer Vladislav Heraskevich was disqualified before his first run at the Games in Italy. The decision was announced by the International Olympic Committee on Thursday.
This crying man is the coach and father of Ukraine's skeleton racer Vladislav Heraskevich, who was disqualified from the Olympic Winter Games. The decision was prompted by Heraskevich's custom helmet, which honors Ukrainian athletes killed in Russia's full-scale war, some of whom had competed in previous Olympic Games. He was not allowed to wear the helmet during his skeleton events, although he continued training in it. He called it the price of Ukraine's dignity and urged the International Olympic Committee to lift the ban, apologize, and donate generators to Ukrainian sports facilities amid the energy crisis in the country. Meanwhile, the committee's spokesperson Mark Adams said the decision was made in accordance with IOC rules, which forbid political expressions on the field.
There are 130 conflicts in the world. We cannot have statements on those during competition.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha backed the athletes, calling the IOC's move a ban on its own reputation.
The IOC has also systematically failed to confront the greatest abuser of international sports and the Olympic Charter, Russia, a country that started 3 invasions during the Olympic truce in the past 3 decades, implemented the largest state-funded doping program, killed 650 Ukrainian athletes and coaches, and damaged 800 sports facilities in Ukraine. These are Russians who must be banned, not the commemoration of their victims. None of them are neutral.
Although the Russian and Belarusian teams have been banned from the Games, some athletes can still compete under neutral status, even though several Russian participants and their coaches have close ties with the Kremlin and publicly supported the war. The IOC also barred 2 other Ukrainian athletes from wearing custom helmets. Katerina Kotsar, who adorned her kit with the words, "Be brave like Ukrainians," and Oleg Handey, who added a line of Ukrainian poetry. The Ukrainian Olympic Committee plans to protest the decision.
Poland today loses its collective will-powered donuts. Fat Thursday, the final Thursday before Ash Wednesday and the start of Lent, is one of the sweetest dates in the Polish calendar. The mission is simple and delicious. Eat as many donuts as possible, preferably in the name of good fortune. Now, on average, each Pole devours 2.5 donuts, or pączki as they say in Polish, in a single day. Tradition holds that pączki brings happiness and prosperity, so modern Polish pastry chefs rise to the occasion. When it comes to prices, experts say that the range for donuts in 2026 is massive, with the price depending primarily on the location of purchase and the scale of production. In popular chain stores, a classic donut typically costs just above €1, while discount stores offer them at around half that. Today, even vegans and the gluten intolerant can join the celebration. The only non-negotiable rule is this: the donut must be light, airy, and pillowy, and that magic happens only when the yeast dough is perfectly aerated. And with that, we end this edition of our Midday Report. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to have some donuts today. See you next time.